Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. Unfortunately, we'll be talking about a defeat today at the Amex Stadium. Brighton and Hove Albion 3, Tottenham Hotspur 2. We were cruising at half-time, but it all went wrong. Now, we're live on YouTube, we're live on X and also Facebook, so please do get involved. Let us know how you are feeling right now as a Tottenham Hotspur fan. Now, as I said, Brighton 3, Tottenham 2. Spurs took the lead in the 23rd minute through Brennan Johnson. We doubled our lead in the 37th minute through James Maddison, Dominic Solanke and Timo Werner with the assists, respectively. And then Brighton came into the game, or back into the game in the 48th minute through Minter. In the 58th minute, they got their equaliser through Rutter. And then they got their winning goal through Danny Welbeck in the 66th minute. Now, the match facts and stats, Spurs had 59.3% of the ball to Brighton's 40.7%. Brighton had 11 shots to Tottenham's 13. Brighton had 4 shots on target to Tottenham's 3. Shots off target, Brighton 5, Spurs 7. Block shots, Brighton 2, Spurs 3. Touches in the opposition box, Brighton 27, Spurs 32. Goalkeeper saves, 1 apiece. Aerial duels 1, Brighton 8, Spurs 8. Fouls, Brighton 14, Spurs 10, and corners, Brighton had 4 to Tottenham's 7. Other results today in the Premier League, Aston Villa 0, Manchester United 0, and Chelsea 1, Nottingham Forest 1. After our result today at the Amex Stadium, losing against Brighton 3-2, Spurs are 9th in the Premier League table. We have played 7, we have 10 points, we have 4 points away from the top 4, and 8 points away from league leaders Liverpool. As per normal, I've got 3 very special guests to talk about today's game. Back with me is channel regular Becky Day. Becky, how are you? We'll talk about the football in a minute, but how are you?
Yeah, I was just saying off air, thank you. Great to be back. I messaged you a couple of weeks ago and said I wasn't going to go into Brighton. Brighton, for me, is a long way, and on a Sunday at 4:30 kickoff, it's just too far. But yeah, I have had a great weekend. Everything's been great. The boys' matches have been great. We've had great. I went to Shrewsbury yesterday to see some family, and then settled down. And at half time, when I was kind of making tea, I was like, "This is amazing. How many are we going to get?" And yeah, I was just saying off air, the tweets that kind of come through sometimes not in chronological order. You can tell whether people have sent them before halftime or after halftime. I'm a bit lost for words, and like you said, it's kind of unfortunately something we get used to. It kind of numbs a bit, really.
Back with us also is channel regular Craig Dearman. Craig, how you doing?
Yeah, not good. I'm sure the rest of us are just shocking second half display. But it's not a good ideal way to go into the international break with that second half performance. But we'll get into it.
And also joining us is returning guest Kerry Tim from New York. Kerry, how are you?
Just like Becky and Craig, I feel like I was doing really well. It was a really nice day until about an hour ago. So I'm sure we'll get into it. But thank you again for having me.
Well, let's start with some comments from Ange Postecoglou. He has just come out and said it is unacceptable to lose a game in that way. Let's hear from him now.
It's the oldest cliche in the book, but goodness me, that really was a game of 2 halves, wasn't it?
Fair to say that the second half was unacceptable, and we pay a price for that.
You started the match so well. I mean, the team very quick out of the blocks, 2-0 up at half-time. It could have been more.
Yeah, we probably should have put it to bed in the first half, but irrespective of that what we did in that second 45 minutes was, like I said, unacceptable. And in football, you get what you deserve, and we got what we deserved.
Do you sense, looking back now, maybe the players perhaps felt the match was as good as one at that point?
Potentially. I mean, the kind of things you kind of look at that maybe we just thought we'd roll out there again, but that's not how football works, especially at this level. And as I said, we pay a price for it.
Do you think the Brighton scoring a goal very early in the second half was a key moment in terms of changing the momentum and the feel around the stadium? Because I noticed it was obviously so soon after the restart. I could see you shaking your head a bit on the touchline. Were you just sort of thinking, here we go, we're really in a game now?
No, we've conceded goals before, but it's how you react to them, and fair to say our reaction wasn't what it should be.
So do you feel you learnt a bit more about your players today?
Not necessarily. Maybe I learnt something different, but like I said, it's a bad day for us, and when it's a bad day, the responsibility falls at my feet.
A bad day, Ange Postecoglou said about the game, Craig. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it was a bloody bad day. It started off all right. First half was sensational. Second half, I just can't believe what I was watching, to be honest. That second half was polar opposite to that first half. It's almost like the players thought they had it won, that they thought that first half was so easy that they can't possibly lose that second half. And that first goal just gave Brighton a bit of fighting spirit. You could see them; they got their tails up, and we were all over the place in that second half defensively, absolutely all over the place. And every single player that second half was terrible. I don't know who out of our players in that second half could come out of it with anything. It's just so annoying. We had that game in the palm of our hands. I've seen people on Twitter say Johnson could have finished it off 3-0 in the first half. You could say that, but 2-0 up. We should have been going on to win that second half. We should have got an early goal and just killed the game. You can't blame one chance or one person, but that second half performance is just not acceptable. Absolutely not acceptable. Romero running around trying to intercept passes coming out of position, leaving huge gaps. Van der Ven had a very poor second half. Udogie was terrible second half. Everybody, it was like they'd never played before in that second half. It was unbelievable. I couldn't actually believe what I was watching, Chris.
What changed for you, Craig, in the second half?
I like I say, I honestly think, slight tweak to Brighton's system, but I think the players just came out a bit nonchalant, to be honest with you. We just weren't at it. The main thing for me was we weren't playing that fast, attacking, pressing football in the second half. We were sitting back. But they were all doing it, and that's when you need a leader on the pitch, a leader to tell players what to do sometimes, like Højbjerg sort of character, if you like. And there was just nobody. I didn't see anybody in that second half taking command of the situation and telling players what they should be doing. Romero's a captain; he should be doing that. I didn't see it. This is the sort of game we should be winning when you're 2-0 up. This is what the top teams do. The top teams win games like this, go on to win games like this, and that's why we're forever the bridesmaid, never the bride for me. But yeah, it is just such a bad second half performance. It's shocking.
Becky, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on the game and your reaction to Ange Postecoglou's comments there.
Yeah, very similar to Craig, really. I just said a minute ago that I think that considering Udogie and Van der Ven weren't involved at all in Budapest, I felt they looked really sluggish. And I think that whole left side, really, if you include Werner in it as well, was just very, very kind of disjointed. And I agree with Craig what was saying. The first half, those little round the corner kind of intricate passes and the interplay was just so good. And I tweeted at half-time to say that I thought Solanke was excellent for both goals as well. And, it was great to see Johnson get his sixth. It was just in the second half, yes, they scored early, but we scored early in the second half against United. So we should expect that from a team trying to kind of come from behind. So that shouldn't affect them. I think it's maybe an excuse to say that all the travelling has affected them. I just think that all those kind of little kind of intricate passes, like Craig said, they weren't happening. It was sort of playing it out from the back and sideways passing, and quite a lot of people have commented about Romero sort of standing very flat-footed. But he's done that in games that we've won as well. I think unfortunately that's what he does. But I think Andrew's kind of response is saying I think he said it's the worst game since he's been here. That's probably because of the nature of the fact that we were 2-0 up, but we've all known there's games where we've played very poor, and even this season, and we go back to the Arsenal game and how flat that game was, I think there just wasn't enough people stepping up. And, although Werner got into some decent runs, again, that even right from the very beginning where that ball, it wasn't Johnson's fault, Werner hit it far too hard across the box at him. I just said to my friend, we can't expect to be 4-0 up in games to make them safe. It's got to be some kind of game management. I thought the subs were too late. I think because of that, when he brought the subs on, it was kind of like, oh, that's not really going to make much difference now. And the game just sort of fizzled out. It was a bit like the Arsenal game. They could still be playing now. You just didn't think they were going to score.
So you're questioning Ange and his tactics today, Becky?
A little bit when we even when you get it to 2-2, we read a lot about how there's no plan B and there's no sort of change. I know we jokingly say it when teams score first against us, or we're kind of like, well, we're not going to change. We can keep playing the same way. But when you're 2-0 up, there has to be some sort of change in direction of play, so that it shouldn't be, because arguably as well, no disrespect to Brighton, we're going to a Galatasaray game like that with the atmosphere and everything. It's just going to be carnage. So there never seems to be this sort of change in how things are, and I think that's what's so disappointing, is that to be so good and so bad in two halves, it's really hard to kind of get your head round.
Terry, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on the game and your take on Ange Postecoglou's comments there.
Yeah, I was putting notes together in my head in that first half about how I was going to wax lyrical about how beautiful the day here is because Tottenham's winning. Just how it seemed like the type of team that any type of neutral or any new fan to football could get behind, just because of the way they were playing, just the passion, the hard pressing, just the beautiful, just fluid nature of the passing. And then that second half happened. I mean, it just seems like whenever we start to build up momentum, whenever we start to think, maybe we've kind of clicked onto that next level, like Craig said, what great teams do, Tottenham just has a way of bringing us back to earth in just the most blunt way here. To me, in that second half, I feel like we just got a little tired more than anything. We're going 100 miles per hour that first half, and I think the same thing happened last week against Manchester United as well, where we just didn't quite have that same energy a bit, and we let them back into the game. I felt like Ange should have gone to the subs a little bit sooner. Someone who was surprisingly off for me today, given that he didn't play during the week, was Bentancur. I thought he seemed really, really off. He wasn't flying into the challenges like he normally does. He seemed timid on the ball. I thought he should have come out for Basuma a lot earlier. I thought Porro looked a little slow as well, but I mean, this is his third game that he's played in the last week. I mean, Matoma's easily man of the match, and he was awesome in the game. I felt like Porro could have come off a little bit earlier, Jed a chance there, some fresh legs. I feel like Jed could have come on for either Porro or Udogie. I really would have liked to see a bit of a reaction to the first goal and the second goal, like Becky said, a bit sooner for Postecoglou.
Craig, let's come to you. Ange Postecoglou has also said it's unacceptable. I'm sure the players are disappointed. They should be disappointed. The fans are disappointed. Disappointment comes from not doing the basics, and I think that he means Bentancur, not putting the ball out. Instead, Brighton then cross and score the winning goal. Things like that. How can that happen in Premier League level? Because I've got to say, I was very impressed from the off from Tottenham because, like we spoke about last week at Old Trafford, the pressing and the really good start from the off. We had a couple of glorious opportunities that we'll talk about in a second in the opening 5 minutes to score our first goal. It didn't happen. Of course, the other two goals came later on in the half. But the way that we started was so well. How can you end a game? Or how can two halves be so different?
Yeah, I'm still scratching my head with that, to be honest. But the only thing I can think of is that they thought they had the game won at half time and they just took their foot off the gas. And in our way of playing, you can't do that. You just can't do that. You have to go at it for 90 minutes like we've seen us do in the past. And like you said, the simple things, like Bentancur should, instead of trying to shepherd the ball out, he should have just got rid of it. Brighton wanted it more than us in that second half. That's the key thing. And as soon as they got that first goal, you just knew what was going to happen. It's like, how many times have we all sat there, helplessly sat there, and know what's going to happen? Gary said it in our chat. You just know what's going to happen when we have games like this. As soon as that team gets that first goal, you could just see it a mile off what was going to happen. And for me, I agree that Ange should have made changes sooner. I think he should have done. But that first 20 minutes, second half, is not on Ange. That's on the players. The players were just not at the races. I agree he should have made changes sooner, and they were too late. But that first 20 minutes, you're Premiership footballers. They weren't doing their job, any of them. And that's on the players for me.
Becky, does today's performance and results surprise you?
Unfortunately not. I think
What I mean by that question, I'm not meaning it in a sarcastic way at all. When you go to Old Trafford like we did last week and play the way that we did, of course, Ange Postecoglou has made multiple number of changes over the last couple of weeks, multiple different games, and we've won, 5 before today. The mood seemed to be very high. Everyone seemed to be extremely confident. You're 2-0 up at half time. Is that not a surprising second 45 minutes for you as a Spurs fan?
Well, I think that, I said to my friends last week at Old Trafford, we needed to get the second goal, and we did at Old Trafford, and then it kind of felt like we were really in control. So to get the second goal just before half-time today, that's why most people who were having messages with people or having conversations were like, brilliant, this is exactly how it's gone. It's gone perfectly. And I think we said the game's just coming so thick and fast that he's made some changes. There's been some alterations in personnel to get us through the games. And, the youngsters playing so well on Thursday, that when we're 2-0 up with our arguably strongest fit team at the moment, you would think that we would go on to win the game. Unfortunately, we've watched Spurs enough to know, and even in the Ange era, when the way they play so high and it's all built on that kind of intricate play, like we just said, if Van der Ven makes a mistake, Bentancur makes a mistake, Romero makes a mistake, then it's likely that we can see the goal. And unfortunately, that happened enough today for us to lose the game. We were not going to escape with a 2-1 or a 3-1. So I think, yes, I think we do. The negativity within us naturally is like, we don't shut up shop. We don't do a plan B. We don't see a game out. Then unfortunately, if we don't go on to score again, then there's a chance that we do lose it. It's just like you said, there's so difference between the first half and the second half.
Becky, I sense that you're kind of blaming Ange for the result today. Am I right in saying that?
Well, a little bit. I'm reading that in the comments and people are saying it's on the players. A little bit. But when we've got the games... We've had 3 away games, haven't we? Yeah, that's what I mean. I think, could he have made some changes earlier? Could there have been a change in... he's not going to go to a back 4, back 5 or a back 3. It's just not in his nature. So if he's not going to do that, then maybe this personnel change... I'm reading a lot of people about saying that, maybe Basuma should have come on earlier. A lot of people said about Werner. It's just when we've got 3 away games in 7 days, which is what we've had, that's a little bit on him. Yes, I think it is on the players as well. It's hard to kind of pick one over the other. I think it just shows that in a game when you're 2-0 up at half-time, a lot of things have to go wrong for it to be the result that it ended up being in, and unfortunately that's what happened.
Terry, let's come to you. Let's talk about the starting 11, because, of course, this was the same starting 11 that beat Manchester United at Old Trafford last weekend in the Premier League. 7 changes from the team that beat Ferencvaros on Thursday in the Europa League. Vicario, Porro, Romero, Werner retaining their places. Do you think this is Tottenham's strongest 11? Certainly the strongest 11 available at the moment, but... would you say that this would be the strongest 11 if Heung-min Son replaced Timo Werner?
Yeah, I would. I would say that's one small positive out of today. I was actually really glad not to see Heung-min Son named onto the squad, because I hope that means he won't go to Korea for the international break and he can properly rehab his hamstring. I think there's an argument now. I mean, I want to support him, but I think there's an argument that Mikey Moore might be a first choice above Werner here. Werner, again, made a lot of great runs, was really bright in his attack, but that finishing product, I mean, it's such a stark contrast to Mitoma on the other side. If you look at the two left wingers, I couldn't help but think, if you had switched Werner and Mitoma, the teams that they were on, I felt like Spurs would have scored 9 or 10 with Mitoma in there. And it really just, it was really, really disappointing. And you can see how much he wants it too. You could see how hard he's trying, and he's kind of overthinking it a bit at this point. So it was tough.
Terry, Ange Postecoglou's record as Spurs boss now, 51 games, 27 wins, 8 draws, 16 defeats. That is in 45 Premier League matches, 2 League Cup, 2 FA Cup, 2 Europa League. It seems in the chat at the moment that there's a lot of negativity around Ange Postecoglou again, despite 5 wins in our last 5 games before today. He said a number of times there's going to be bumps in the road. This is a process. This is a rebuild. How are you feeling about Ange Postecoglou? Because it just seems that whenever we lose a game now, it's like, most people jump on that bandwagon of, the tactics are all wrong and he should have made changes. Becky's said what she said on this podcast already about Ange. Is it right to criticise Ange Postecoglou for this loss today?
No, it really isn't. I mean, unfortunately, I think it's typical Spurs fandom here. I mean, yesterday he was the second coming, right? And then one loss, and all of a sudden it's Ange out and Levy out. It's just, I don't understand the knee-jerk reactions. It's so reactionary, dependent on every game, on every half here. I actually disagree with Becky that it was Ange's fault on this. I agree with Craig that I think it's on the players. They came out really, really flat in that second half. Brighton just wanted it more. I mean, in that first half, without a doubt, all 11 of Tottenham's players wanted it more than Brighton. They were suffocating. They were absolutely suffocating Brighton. And then it was the exact reverse. And then you can see just the confidence just kind of drain out of each of the players as the minutes goes on and on and on. I don't want to use that one term that people use, but I do think this team, and this predates Ange as well. It's that soft underbelly. When we have these moments of trouble, right? There isn't that strong spine, there isn't that strong leader to kind of take the game by the scruff of the neck and keep some type of shape to that team. I never thought we would be saying we'd miss Højbjerg, but Craig mentioned him today. Yeah, it's someone like him that we needed today on a day like today. But I don't put this on Ange at all. I really think, I don't know what else he could have done other than the substitutions. But the players had that game in the bag. And I think, unfortunately, they knew that. They did tire a bit, but that's still no excuse for that flat of a beginning of that second half.
Craig, can I ask you about Ange? How are you feeling about him today? Because he seems to be absolutely fuming by this performance, by this result, and by us not doing the basics, as he said.
Yeah, as I say, I think that second half, the first 20, 25 minutes is totally on the players. I'm not sure what Ange could have done, but there was a point in that second half where we could all see, sitting at home, sitting in the stadium, where changes need to be made. And that's why I think he was a bit late making the subs. Udogie was dreadful the second half. Most of our players were dreadful second half, but Udogie had lost his head. You could see it. Spence sitting on the bench, you could have put Spence on. Bentancur was dead on his feet after about 20 minutes. I don't know if anybody else noticed that. He was just walking around. Romero, I'm not saying take Romero off, but he winds me up sometimes by the way he just, World Cup winner, he moves out of position and people have to cover for him, leaving gaps everywhere. You could see it. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. I don't know. I'm with Terry on this. I don't blame Ange completely for this at all, because at half time we all thought brilliant, but it's just key moments in that second half. He wouldn't have seen this coming. None of us saw this coming, that second half display. But it was like bang, bang, bang. And there was at some point he had to make a change. And I just think it was too late. You can't give Mikey Moore 9-10 minutes. If you want him to influence the game, we can't on the 17-year-old to influence the game. I personally would have bought on Will Lancashire for Solanke. Solanke just looked dead on his feet. He wasn't making those runs. There was a couple of times I think Udogie did have a shot actually and spilled it, and Solanke would normally be in there it was just a tap in, but he wasn't there. He looked a bit knackered. It was like the second half, it was a different team and they hadn't played together. So yeah, in answer to your question, I don't blame Ange fully for this. He looked fuming. He's right to fume over it. It's a shame there's the international break because, of course, all those players are going to be going off now. Always seems to happen to us. It's an international break thing where we've gone into it and we've had a crap crap end to the games before the international break. It's just really frustrating.
Becky, Brighton seemed to be very, very aggressive in that second half, and I felt that Spurs were very aggressive in the first half. What changed for you in that second half for Brighton coming out? Because, you know, from minute one of the start of that second half, Brighton were a completely different team.
Did they made a change in there? Did they think, is it Estepinian? Did he come on and made a change?
He did.
I think,
and he played great in the second half.
So I think there was like a slight tweak, like I was saying. You know, I don't know if people have misunderstood me. I'm not sitting there saying Ange needs to be sacked or anything. I just think that if Brighton were 2-0 down at half time and they made some tweaks to their formation, why can't we do the same when the team is kind of coming against us and looking like it's going to end in defeat? I don't know. That's not me saying I don't want him to be a manager. I think sometimes he just seems to play the same way no matter who we're playing. And I think sometimes we need to play different ways with different opponents. I don't know. The other thing that frustrated me, I don't know, Chris, if you thought this actually standing in the away end, is that he just seems to stand over his hands in his pockets. And you see managers that are more animated, and I think we said similar at the Arsenal game, is that he can be frowning and looking frustrated, and he seems more animated when misses happen. So that, because Sky today panned straight to him, there was a couple of times where I think there's a chance and they see him and he kind of is doing this and then he turns around, but his hands in his pockets when the other team scores. And I think that's what's, the players, when you see them, obviously when you're in the stadium, you don't notice it, but when you're watching back on TV, which I've done today, is that they pan to the players and you see a couple of them, when they make a miss, they look at Ange as if they, oh God, I'm going to get told off for that. But he doesn't particularly show much animation when other teams score. And I think that, again, I'm reading in the comments, people are saying, yeah, it's not Ange's fault, it's on the players. I get that. I think it is a little bit of both. But equally, he has to be the one to sort of show what needs to be done. If his body language is hands in his pockets and he's just sort of pacing along the dugout, does that really encourage players to play and step up and explain that there was clearly a difference? We can't explain what the difference was, but there was clearly a difference from first half to second half. Now, whether it was his team talk was too limp or the players did come out and were too complacent, but his role somehow is to be, I don't know, I just, from a grassroots situation, I've watched 2 matches this afternoon. Every single time the managers were animated, whether their teams were winning or losing. I think when we have a defeat, that again is a little bit frustrating because it's kind of like, come on, Ange, galvanise them. We're trying to galvanise them in the crowd. We're trying to galvanise them at home. Do that bit as well. Yes, I know they're paid, bajillion pound a week to do it as well, but I think it comes from the managers. And then there's times when you just think, be frustrated after in press conferences or be protective in press conferences, deal with it in-house, but just be a little bit more animated when we're not playing well enough.
Terry, let's come to you. Let's talk about the game itself, because just seconds into the match, Timo Werner had the ball on the left-hand side, put in a cross for Brennan Johnson. Wasn't quite the right pass for Brennan Johnson to tap in. 3 minutes later, Kulusevski, with a good run, had his shot blocked. A minute later, Timo Werner beat his man. A lot of people cheered that because, of course, we want to see the best from Timo Werner on that left-hand side. A minute later, ball over the top. Maddison had his shot blocked. So it was a really good opening first 5 minutes. And I must say, in the away end, a lot of the fans were very, very impressed with our start, the pressing. Like I mentioned last week against Manchester United, it was a really, really good, positive start. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, it was just one-way traffic. It's just incredibly impressive. It's not just for the first 5 minutes, but for that first half. The passing was so silky and fluid going back. It's just absolutely just beautiful, beautiful football. I mean, I would say silky and fluid, except for Werner, unfortunately. The runs from the team, though. So that run by Brennan Johnson for that first goal, not only that, it just that look from Solanke to get him to slot him in there. And I love that was an instant reaction to that offside goal being called offside, which seemed really, really close. But that came, a minute or two after that happened? I mean, what a reaction to that. I think I'd like to kind of focus on the first half and talk about some positives, because I think the connections between Kulu, Solanke, Maddison, and Brennan Johnson right now are really, really good. Like the four of them really seem to be clicking together. if you can imagine Son getting into that mix and the 5 of them clicking, that brings me hope. That brings me. So it's I just can't believe that team from the first half were the same players that came out in the second half. Like the silky passing, the aggressiveness, the desire. I just don't know where that went.
Craig, let's come to you in the 11th minute. Pedro Porro ball forward. James Maddison couldn't quite get there. A minute later, Kulusevski had his shot blocked. In the 18th minute, Timo Werner beat his man again, but a poor cross. A minute later, goalkeeper kicked out because Dominic Solanke was pressing so much, which I thought was very, very impressive. Timo Werner then had the ball in the net. It got disallowed. Johnson and Porro, crossed for Timo Werner to head in. And then a minute later, as Terry said, Brennan Johnson scored to make it 1-0. What do you make of the goal?
That's a fantastic goal. Yeah, great ball through from Solanke. 6-in-6 for Johnson now. The confidence is oozing through him. I just hope that second half hasn't dented that confidence. He's just playing out of his skin at the moment. It's just a shame he couldn't get that second one before the half. But you can't be relying on him to score every single chance, even though his confidence is well up. I can see people in the comments, and you read on X about how frustrated everybody is. I know everybody is, but that first half display was brilliant. And it's almost like somebody transported a totally different Tottenham Hotspur in that second half. But for me, it does come down to leaders on the pitch. You see him do the team huddles, and Vicario was doing the chat at the beginning of the second half. But I don't see that during the game. Becky was right. They're looking around, looking over to see what Ange was going to say to him. I personally like my manager to be a bit more animated than Ange was, but that is just his management style. So, you've got to take the rough with the smooth. You've got to accept that's how he is. But it is on the players. They're professional footballers. There should have been somebody on that pitch. They could feel. I've played in games like that where you can feel the game turning, and it needs just one person to put in a tackle or tell the players, give them a bit of jip, like you used to see Højbjerg do. It needed one of them to do it, and I didn't see any of them doing that. They were just all looking at each other, expecting somebody else to do it, and they didn't. I'm going to use the word again. It's just so frustrating, really frustrating.
Becky, let's come to you on Brennan Johnson's goal, because, of course, that is 6-in-6 for him, which is a huge positive. A great move, actually, involving Maddison and Solanke, and another fantastic finish from Johnson.
Yeah, really good. Like you said, I agree with everything I said so far. When you're in confidence and you're playing confidence, it just really works. I said as well. I tweeted at halftime. I thought Solanke involving both the goals that we scored he's really up there. A lovely kind of weighted through ball, and it was left foot. It was a really great goal, and I think I've seen images of him kind of like patting the badge as well and things, which is really nice. And you could really hear Johnson again, ole on TV. Really hear that. When we were 2-0 up as well. It's great for him. I just hope he doesn't get injured playing for Wales now.
In the 32nd minute, Brighton missed a glorious chance. Danny Welbeck, a ball across goal, and then. Well, it was nearly 1-1. Terry, what did you make of this opportunity? Because Brighton didn't have that many chances in the first half.
Yeah, that was a close one. I'm trying to see who that player is right behind Welbeck. Is that Bentancur or is that Romero?
Romero, I think.
Yes, Romero,
yeah.
Is it? Yeah. Welbeck really should have done better. I thought we got away with one at that point, but the way the game was going at that point, I thought that's probably going to be the only chance, and we'll be fine. Little did I know what was coming.
Terry, on 33 minutes, Timo Werner was through again, and then he fell to the floor. Didn't quite control the ball very well. Huge groans from the away end at that point. I'm going to ask you the question that I appear to be asking every single guest at the moment. Can Ange Postecoglou get the very best out of Timo Werner?
There really is no choice at this point, right? Other than Mikey Moore. until Son comes back or Odegaard comes back, we have to trust. We have to trust in him. I really think it's a confidence issue. I was really glad that Werner actually got the credit for the second assist for the goal on the second assist. And I think he did at least. And I was hoping that would give him a bit of confidence. He had that one shot, I think in the second half, where he turned in and put on his right foot, and it was kind of that typical Son goal that he would usually score. I was just praying that would go in, just to give him a bit of confidence here. I'm still going to support him. I still think he can U-turn similar to the way Brennan Johnson did, with just a bit of confidence. For Timo, these next 2 weeks might actually be a blessing, just to get his mind straight, just to get a bit away from the noise that's surrounding him right now. But when he kind of fell over the ball, or I'm not quite sure what happened in that moment that you're talking about, it just kind of encapsulated how his last few weeks have been.
Craig, can I ask you about Timo Werner? Because I watched Timo Werner quite closely in the warm-up, and he scored 3 fantastic goals against Fraser Forster in the warm-up. But he scored 3 fantastic goals, looked really, really confident in the warm-up, and looked like a huge sigh of relief, weight off the shoulders when that goal was given. And then, of course, it was ruled out for offside. He just needs that goal, doesn't he?
He does. It's a funny. I think I've said on many podcasts that it's that confidence you get from scoring a goal when you're a front player, and it's just not happening for him. I was watching him closely today. He did put in a lot of work. He did skin their right back several times. Not all his crosses were great, but
which is credit to him, Craig, because we've said on various different podcasts before that, failure to beat the man. But I felt like he'd done that a number of times today.
Yeah, and look, Werner does get a lot of stick. We all know his shortcomings, right? But I didn't think he was that bad in that first half. He set up one goal. He was keeping his wide position well, occupying the fullback. We all know he's not very good at scoring goals, which we've discussed to the death on here before. He just needs a goal. That's what he needs. And he is going to get more opportunities over the next few weeks. I mean, Son, you would think he's going to be back after the international break. But with Odegaard out, Yang not coming till January, you are going to see more of Timo Werner before Christmas, that's for sure. It's just concerning. I mean, I don't know how true this is. I just had a quick look. I think it's right that it's our worst start for 16 years to the Premier League. It doesn't feel like that to me. It really doesn't.
Is that the problem, though? Because we've played well in a lot of these games, but just haven't got the points because we have been so wasteful in front of goal in that final third in so many matches.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I say worst start for 16 years, the 08-09 season, we actually had 2 points at this stage. And we actually only had 5 after 9 games. So those were dark. But we had just won a trophy and we got to the final the following year. This club is it's just weird. That's the only word I can use to describe it. It's just weird supporting this club. Just when you think you've turned the corner, you get a result like this, like 5 on the bounce, and then this happens. It's just. I just wonder, is there any other club in the world like Tottenham? There probably is. Every other fan of every other club probably goes through this, unless you're perhaps a City fan or Liverpool, something like that. But it just seems like, why always us? It's shocking, really, isn't it?
It can certainly be draining. Becky, let's come to you. Let's talk about Tottenham's second goal on 38 minutes. James Maddison. Should the goalkeeper have done better?
Yes, I think so. I think from certainly watching on TV, I was like, well, Maddison's kind of hit it straight at him. And then you're sort of like, oh, he's celebrating. Oh, it's gone through. And then they obviously pan straight to the goalkeeper. It was a nice assist from Werner. I think, just agree with what Craig just said. Even thinking back to the United game, he gets himself in such good positions and sometimes the players can't catch up with him. And it's that final ball. But yeah, I think it's a lovely goal from Maddison. And obviously then he kind of milks it with the celebration. And we kind of, like I said at the top of the show, you know, you think 2-0 at half time, the way they were playing, it was going to be how many, and then we'd be taking players off for nice 60 minutes to give them fresh legs, and how wrong we were.
Becky, a minute before the half-time break, Brennan Johnson fired over the bar. Fantastic pace, but the finish wasn't as good as his 6 previous finishes in the last 6 games. What did you make of Brennan Johnson today?
Yeah, and like I said, I think agree with a lot of people. You know, good first half, and then kind of much quieter in the second half. I think because obviously we're doing a lot more defending. They don't get the ball, and I think the same with Sri Lanka. Is it tiredness or is it lack of service? But with Johnson, I was shouting at him to pass it to Werner, as weird as that may sound, because I just thought that Werner was slightly on the shoulder of the defender. It would have been a better pass. And if you think back to the goals that Johnson has scored, most of them have been on the floor. There hasn't been goals where he's kind of shot from range up in the air. So I thought it was a strange decision for him to make, to kind of blast it at the goalie really anyway. So yeah, I don't think that was necessarily the turning point, obviously, if that had gone in. I think, yeah, it was just, that's when the luck ran out really.
Terry, I tell you what, I spoke to a number of Spurs fans. We were all smiling at half time. Everyone was super happy, thinking we were going to go into the international break with yet another win, 6 out of 6. Of course, it wasn't to be. How are you feeling at the halfway point?
At the halfway point of the game?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Same thing. It's again, I was thinking about what we've done over the past couple of weeks. Again, without Son getting a full 2 weeks rest, hopefully not going on international break, and even going deeper than that, hopefully Son not being there, meaning Yang might get his start and get some experience and be more ready for Tottenham when he comes to us in January. Everyone just seemed to be having fun out there. I mean, it's the Ange's starting line for Ferencváros seemed to be a masterstroke, because it seemed like all the right players had the rest. Even though Bentancur and Porro still did seem a bit off. It was just so shocking. No one could have expected that. Again, I was going through these mental notes in my head about how I was going to wax lyrical about how great of a day it was, and it just brought us down to earth so quickly. It was amazing.
Craig, let's come to you. Let's come to you talking about Brighton's first goal in the 48th minute. What did you make of this? Because your doggy surely should have done better here, cleared the ball. It just seems that mistakes again have really cost us today. Yeah,
totally. I mean, he should have been clearing that. I don't know what. I think he just missed totally air kicked it, went through his legs, and he was there to slot it in. He didn't have his best game with Doggy. Didn't look fully fit to me, to be honest. I mean, obviously he's passed the fitness test, but you know, you had Jed Spence sitting on the bench. I think he should have come in for him earlier on in the second half. I mean, he played the full 90, didn't he? So obviously Ange thought he was doing all right, but it's a bad mistake, very bad mistake for a Premier League defender.
Craig, let's stay with you. Vicario made a save from a Brighton attack in the 56th minute. A minute later, Kulusevski crossed a cross goal, no one there, which was disappointing. Pedro Porro had a shot deflected to the goalkeeper, and then Jorginho made it 2-2. Craig, what did you make of this equaliser for Brighton in the 58th minute?
Just sloppy again. Defence all over the place. They seem to be finding spaces between their lines at this point. As you can see, they're running through in between the centre backs. That whole 10-15 minutes was like they'd just not played together. Nobody was taking responsibility. And I come back to it. There was just no organisation. No organisation at all. All looking at each other, you know, blaming each other essentially. You've seen that look before, but you know that Brighton had their tails up at this point. We just needed to take control of the game. I'd love to see the possession stats for that 20 minutes, because Brighton were dominating us then. I can't see how a game can flip on its head so quickly. We're our own worst enemy sometimes. It's really, really poor.
Becky, when you look back at that first half, do you think that Spurs were wasteful in front of the goal? Because fair enough, you go in at half time, you're thinking you're 2-0 up, you're in control. You should be winning a game when you're 2-0 up at half time away from home. But should we be more clinical in that first half to put the game, because I felt that the game was way beyond the reach of Brighton coming back, even to get a point, let alone 3.
Yeah, I think so. I know I keep comparing it to United last week, but I don't remember there being so many clinical chances in the first half. I know you're saying there about the Welbeck one. I think it didn't feel like Brighton had many chances, so you didn't really feel like they were going to get back into it. Because at Old Trafford, Johnson hit the post as well, didn't he, in the first half? And I just remember there being more chances that we were all turning around to each other and going, oh gosh, are we going to really, rue these missed chances? I think I said that here. I think because we went 2-0 up, you feel it's a little bit more secure. But yeah.
Terry, let's come to you. Let's talk about Brighton's third goal. I know we've got to do it on the podcast. Apologies, but Danny Welbeck with Brighton's winner. What did you make of it?
I think those 3 goals came so quickly together that I'm kind of mixing up who was involved with who. I think it was Jorginho who was really fighting for the ball. In this picture, you see him on the end line there. And he made a really nice, I think he fought through 2 or 3 people just to get that cross off to Welbeck. And that just goes back to desire. It's that desire that was there to win the ball just wasn't there. He just wanted it much more than whoever the defenders were on him at that point. And then I'm not sure who is supposed to mark Welbeck there. I'm pretty sure it's Romero. That seems to happen so often this season where a cross comes in and the guy's completely unmarked. I mean, you could not. Werner couldn't have scored that one. He was so open. It's so frustrating. We talked about Romero before. I don't understand for someone who's a captain, someone who's so intense, someone who clearly loves and cares for the team, and how he can kind of shut off so often in key moments here. And it's becoming a problem. It really is. It's just unbelievably frustrating.
Craig, when you look at Brighton's third goal and Bentancur failed to clear, frustrating, isn't it? Because, you should be clearing that ball all day long. And the fact that we have just thrown away a 2-goal lead to lose the game 3-2, it seems, this picture on the screen, it just seems so easy from a Brighton point of view.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly that. You could say it was lucky that he was in the right place, but he's where a centre forward should be, exactly in the position where you'd expect Dominic Solanke to be. Our defenders switched off again, not reading the situation, and Brighton get their just rewards. You have to say fully deserved in the second half. As badly as we played, I feel I need to give some credit to Brighton for the way they attacked that second half and performed the second half. Yeah. We were bad, but really they were pretty good that second half. Would have given any team a run for their money, but just had to be bloody us, didn't it? Honestly, after their results. You could see which way this game was going to go. It wasn't going to be much brilliant defending from either team. It just happened that we were on the receiving end of Brighton making one of the best comebacks in many a season. So, but we didn't help ourselves.
The fight and the desire, Craig, to for Bentancur not to have won that ball and cleared it, because Brighton wanted it a lot more. They won that 50-50 challenge, if you like. It should have probably been dealt with beforehand, but disappointing all round. Becky, what do you make of Brighton's third goal?
Yeah, I agree. I think that kind of left-hand corner where Udogie didn't really sort of get rid of it, and I think Bentancur he didn't clear it, did he? And then I think he kind of felt like he was fouled, which is why Romero and Porro sort of flat-footed. Because if you watch it back, Porro sort of looks as if to say that was a foul on Bentancur, and by then, like Craig, you know, the attacker is there. He's in the position that you would expect him to be, and they score. And yeah, I think, you know, they were far more clinical than us. I don't feel like they had loads and loads of chances, but when they had their chances, they scored them, and made our defence poor. Like I said at the top of the show, I think Udogie and Van de Ven played very poor considering they were rested on Thursday. It's odd that you would think having the rest would help. They didn't have to travel, and yet they're the ones that didn't really show the sharpness. Again, it's very hard to fathom.
Terry, let's come to you. In the 73rd minute, Timo Werner shot over the bar from range. In the 78th minute, Pedro Porro had a shot which was blocked. A minute later, James Maddison had a shot which went wide. Ange Postecoglou then made two subs, Bentancur and Timo Werner off, and Sarr and Basuma on. What were you thinking at this point?
Yeah, those shots never really felt that dangerous. I was interested to see Sarr. Basuma, again, I thought he should have come on earlier. It was interesting that Sarr came on. I thought another attacker would come on. So I actually thought Mikey Moore would come on at that point. He didn't. When Sarr came on, I thought he looked really bright. I thought Basuma looked a lot stronger at the back than Bentancur had done. So they were good changes. I wish Mikey Moore had come on sooner. I don't think Mikey Moore really had much of an opportunity to really get into the game. It didn't really seem like he was warmed up. He tried a couple of things. It didn't really seem to work. It just seemed too late. It didn't really feel like in my heart that we would get an equalizer even with those changes. We just didn't seem that threatening. If anything, it almost felt like Brighton might have scored before we did. So it's. Again, just that energy just wasn't there. It's you could see how the players were just deflated after that third goal. I shouldn't even say after the third goal. Really, probably after the Brighton's first or second goal, they seemed deflated. And that energy just never came back, even with new players.
I don't know if I'm misremembering things, but Maddison went off against Newcastle and we lost. Maddison went off at Leicester and then we didn't win, and he's come off again today and we haven't won. I think it does really feel that when he goes, because Kulusevski then goes usually on the right wing, that kind of creative element in the middle has gone. You know, you've got Sarr and Basuma and whether it be Bentancur and that kind of triangle of who's playing with moving Kulusevski, because Kulusevski and Maddison work so well. When we're usually making a substitution, Maddison is coming off. It then that changes things, and it does feel a bit like, oh, where's, like Terry just said, where are we going to get that creative? Where's it coming from? And like I think that felt like that today when Maddison went off.
That's exactly what I was going to go next, Becky, about the creativity of players coming off the bench, you know, having the game changers. I know I've said this multiple times and it's upset a few people saying that we didn't do enough in the transfer window. But I just feel like we are still a couple of players away from having a really strong bench to bring players, you know, off the bench to be game changers. Craig, let's come to you. In the 78th minute, Kulusevski went out on the wing. In the 84th minute, Udogie had a shot, goalkeeper saved it. In the same minute, Brighton threw on goal, Romero tackle. Brighton then had another shot, went wide. And then in the 85th minute, Maddison went off, Mikey Moore coming on, Kulusevski went through the middle again. I'm going to ask you that question about game changers. When we need a goal, you know, at the end of the game, to either, you know, get an equaliser, try and get a winner in certain matches, who are the game changers? Who are the players that you want to see Ange Postecoglou bringing on to change the game?
And that's just it. It's like we've discussed many times. That bench was full of decent footballers, but there was no, I would say, game changers on it. You got Will Lancashire, you got Mikey Moore, but of course they're both very young lads. There was nobody on that bench I'd have thought to bring on that could do what was needed today to actually get us back into the game. I didn't see Basuma or Sarr doing that. Both capable of scoring or creating something on their day, but it's not like bringing on a Gascoigne or a Ginola or somebody like that, is it? It's just there was just nobody there that really, I thought, get him on to actually change the game and do something. So that says to me, we are still light. We are still light on the bench. Yes, we've got some injuries at the moment. We could have done with bringing on a Richarlison or an Odegaard or Son, and we just didn't have it today. But let's get it right. We should have had that game wrapped up and tied up, and the 3 points in the bag way before then. And that second half performance, we got what we deserved at the end of the day.
Becky, let's come to you. Let's talk about the international break because, of course, now Spurs face West Ham on the 19th of October in 13 days' time. It's the international break. Dominic Solanke is back in the England squad. Pedro Porro is back in the Spain squad. Heung-min Son has been withdrawn from the South Korean squad. Just wanted to ask you your opinion on Porro and Solanke being back in their respective squads.
Yeah, I think it's fully deserved. I read a tweet yesterday to say something along the lines of Solanke scored 1 goal for Liverpool, 27 goals for Bournemouth, wasn't in the England team, scores twice for Spurs and then gets in the England team, and they felt that was unjust. But I think it's bigger than that. I think Tony moving to Saudi Arabia has kind of made a space for him. What's more strange to me is that Maddison isn't in and about the squad. I think that's strange. But Porro, I think he deserves this spot. Whether he'll get many minutes for Spain, I'm not sure with the squad that they've got. But yeah, I think it's the thing for me is, like Craig was just saying there, Werner's not going to go on international break. Bentancur's not going on international break. So those players that, for me, it's the ones that don't go. Hopefully, they have the tactics. Because you say, it's 2 weeks until that game. It isn't. The players come back on like the Wednesday night, don't they? And the West Ham game as well is 12:30 kickoff. So there's like probably 1.5 training sessions. So anything he needs to sort out, he needs to sort out tonight, because before they go off flying all around the world. Or he needs to send them some emails, because he's not going to have a great deal of time to sort it. But to be fair, I don't think he's going to do anything different. They will play the same way against West Ham. As I said earlier in the show, they don't change necessarily for the opponent. The way they play is the same. It might just be personnel, depending on how things go.
Terry, let's come to you. Let's get your opinion on Solanke and Porro being back in their respective squads for their countries. And also, Ange Postecoglou has come out and said he cannot wait to have Richarlison back. Of course, I feel like it's been really frustrating for Ange Postecoglou, because ever since taking the job, he's never, ever had every single player fit and available.
Yeah, I agree. So firstly on Solanke and Porro, just personally for them, I just couldn't be happy for them. They did. You can see what they put in for the club and how much they wanted. As a Tottenham fan, I hope they don't get any game time at all. I would really like to see them get 2 weeks of rest, maybe stay warm with the practices, but I hope they don't get into any of the games. Richarlison is a frustrating one. It really is, because we see his potential when he does come on. I don't remember him being injured like this all the time at Everton or even at Watford. I don't know what it is. There's just something. There just seems to be some kind of mojo missing with him in Tottenham. I can't see a future with him here, just because he can never stay on the field. And I just don't know what it is. It's one of these things is if he does go somewhere, that he'll absolutely light it up. Kind of going back to your previous question, Chris, you were talking about game changers. When you said kind of who would you like to have seen come on, I would have said Lo Celso. I mean, I was in the minority when I wanted to see Lo Celso actually stay, because I feel like he could be a game changer. He didn't have the gas tank to play a full game, but he could come on for 20-30 minutes and be really bright. I mean, it's tough seeing him go to Real Betis. I think he's, at least before this last weekend, I think he's scored every goal for Real Betis so far. I feel like if he had been on the bench, he would have given us a spark that we really needed in that second half.
Craig, let's come to you. Of course, next up is the West Ham game in 13 days' time on Saturday, the 19th of October. They, so far this season, have played 7 in the Premier League. They have won 2 against Palace and Ipswich. They have drawn 2 against Fulham and Brentford and lost 3 against Villa, Man City and Chelsea. They have 8 points in the Premier League table. How do you see this game going?
Well, West Ham are going to be up for it after a good result this weekend. They love playing us. They always do. They always seem to raise their game against us. It's probably one of the worst teams I could think to play after a result like today. Apart from Arsenal or Chelsea, I can't think of any other team I'd less want to play. We're just going to have to be up for it. You know, they always give us a game. Always. The fans are always up for it. So, we've just got to get back on the horse, as they say. We've just got to try and forget that and learn our lessons from it at the same time. So, you know, if we lose to West Ham, you know, it doesn't take long for things to start nosediving. So we need to start again in that West Ham game.
Becky, how do you see the West Ham game going in 2 weeks' time?
Well, I was just reading the comments. Someone was saying that Angel has beaten West Ham in 4 attempts. I agree with what Craig says. It's their cup final. They really be up for it, and that result yesterday really surprised me. Again, it's going to be a tricky one. Antonio scored yesterday, so you know I was quite looking forward to today's game because I thought it's 2 teams that are going to play the same way. There isn't going to be a low block from Brighton. It's going to be a really good, entertaining end-to-end game. I just didn't expect us to lose it, and I think West Ham will know that they can come to us on a high line and kind of probably play long balls over the top and see how we get on. So, like I said, I think we will still play the same way. It's just who we get in the starting lineup because of all the international things. But yeah, we certainly have the quality to beat West Ham. That doesn't mean that we will.
Terry, how do you see the game going?
I mean, now that Becky said that Ange hasn't won in 4 games, that actually makes me feel good because I feel like we're due. I didn't know that fact. I've only watched 1 West Ham game thus far, and that was the Ipswich game this past just yesterday. I don't know if it was West Ham looking really good or just being Ipswich. I thought Jared Bowen looked really bright. Kudus is always really dangerous. I've heard that there's been a disconnect between Lopetegui and the players, and that's been reflected in the results thus far. Again, I didn't see that in the game yesterday against Ipswich, but that's just a sample size of 1, so it's hard to tell kind of which West Ham team is going to show up. I would say I'm hoping the Tottenham players will take this 2 weeks to kind of reflect and react, similar to the way I think the last international break was after the Newcastle game, correct? And if you see the way that we reacted after that was quite positive. I'm hoping the same thing happens here. I am cautiously optimistic about the West Ham game.
Of course, Terry, it all depends on whether all these players come back fit and well from international duty. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Terry, thanks so much for joining us this evening. Where can people find you on social media and what you're up to at the moment?
So social media, again, I'm not very active on social media for a lot of the reasons that we've talked about today here. I am on X, TKimWM. In terms of what I'm up to, I'm about to host a barbecue with some Brighton fans. This was planned long in advance. Luckily, they're very polite, so they won't give me stick, but it's actually even worse because they're so polite. They're going to kind of give me these.
I bet they do.
I'm sorry type of look, which is even worse. So I'm going to log off and go have a beer with a Brighton fan here.
Well, Terry, thank you so much for your time and your input. Craig, thank you so much for yours as well. Where can people find you?
Yeah, at Dearman9 on X if you want to give me a follow. Although I'd just say stay off social media for the next couple of days. Just don't beat yourselves up. We know it's going to be an absolute crap show. So I don't really intend to go on X much over the next few days. But yeah, look, thanks for watching. We have got an international break now, so hopefully in the next 2 weeks they'll have a long, hard look at themselves and sort it out for the West Ham game. Let's be positive, eh? But yeah, West Ham is a big game. Where I live, a lot of my mates are West Ham, so in many ways, this is certainly their biggest game of the season. And then I get it in the neck if they do it over. So this is really one I want to win.
Thank you, Craig. And Becky, where can people find you? And thanks so much for coming back on.
It's all right. It's a pleasure. Thank you. I think it was a little bit of therapy. I think we did need it. I think Craig's right. It'd be a good idea to be busy for the next kind of couple of weeks. Becky on Twitter. I'm at the West Ham game, which is a lovely sort of 5 o'clock start for me. And then I'm at a Palace game. So on paper, they're arguably 2 winnable games. But like I said, West Ham will be up for it, and Palace is a tricky place to go, and they're playing at home. Interestingly, today, to kind of put some sort of reality check on everything, Liverpool were the only team to win away this weekend. Every other win was a home win, which is why it seems so frustrating that we didn't manage to beat Brighton. But I've said on here before, teams are better at home for various reasons. So after us having 3 away games in 7 days, it'd be nice to be back at home, and hopefully we'll have like Craig said, a really good reaction because otherwise, I've said this before, West Ham go a couple of goals up, the atmosphere changes quite quickly at Spurs, and I think that we need to have a good performance and lots of goals. And like when I saw you, wasn't it, at the Brentford game, and I sort of was like, I don't think we're going to score, and you were like, well, you're always really positive, and I was like, I know, and you turned out to be right, and I was wrong. So hopefully we'll be back to that in the West Ham game. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Terry, for your input this evening. It was a hard one to take today, that is for sure. Enjoy the international break if you can. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again very soon. Come on, you Spurs.
Thank you.